Marisha here, continuing my series on free things to see and do in London. Today's video will be a little bit shorter because it's pretty niche. We're going to be talking about nautical London. To start, the big museum is the National Maritime Museum, and this is in Greenwich. Greenwich is a really cool area of London. I might do a separate video talking about just all the things that you can do in Greenwich. But the National Maritime Museum is really sizable and it covers a lot of ground, not just chronologically, but also just various aspects of seafaring life. So you're going to learn about different types of boats. You'll see models of boats. You'll see paintings of boats. You'll see examples of mastheads from like historic ships. You'll see nautical flags. You'll also learn about merchant history, the East India Company, the slave trade. You'll learn about naval history. There's a whole section on Horatio Nelson and the Battle of Trafalgar, for example. You'll learn about Arctic expeditions, right? So even more modern day kind of seafaring activities. It covers a lot of ground, a lot of different areas. So I think it's one of those museums where there's something for everyone. I think we would be hard pressed to go there and not find anything of interest. When I went, they had a special exhibition, which was also free, on women in the RNLI. And I can't remember exactly what RNLI stands for, but it is essentially a civilian volunteer version of the Coast Guard. Basically, they do wonderful work saving people at sea. And they have posts all around the coast of the UK. And like pretty much everything in the history of ever, women were not always allowed to participate at every level or in every position in the RNLI. And this exhibition was about kind of the pioneers who opened doors for later generations of women to come and be leaders or hold, posts that had previously been closed off to them. Now, I think that sometimes they do have special exhibits that require you to purchase a ticket, but obviously they do have shifting exhibits like the RNLI one that are also free and included in the free admission. They have a pretty sizable gift shop where you can find lots of books on lots of things, right? If you want to find out about pirates, you can find out about pirates. If you want to find out about the history of the slave trade, you can find books on that. If you want to find history of important naval battles, you can find that. If you want to get a book on how to tie different nautical ropes, you can find a book on that. And then also lots of other gift shop things, including, toys and stuff for kids. It's also a museum that does a good job, I think, of appealing to children. The other major kind of free nautical themed museum that I'm going to plug here is the London Museum of Docklands. This is located in Canary Wharf. Canary Wharf is a nice place to walk around if you want to peep some architecture and public artwork, and it is on the river, so really kind of scenic walks. Museum of Docklands surprised me. I really went there because like it's free and I'll go to any museum that's free pretty much. But I'm not super interested in nautical stuff, especially the Docklands side of things. But I was surprised at how large the museum was and how interesting I ended up finding it. You'll take the elevator to the top floor or the lift to the top floor and start there and work your way down, and it goes chronologically. And so on the top floor you will see kind of the instruments that were used when people would unload their goods from their ships and to have them processed. And so the materials that were used to move goods, to weigh goods, you'll learn a little bit about how taxes were assessed on imports. A history of kind of what life was like for workers there. You will also, throughout the course of the museum, learn again much more about kind of the merchant side of things, because that's primarily what the Docklands were dealing with, is merchant ships coming in and your imports coming in. There's a sizable uh, um, portion that talks about like the slave trade and obviously not just its history, but its legacy. You'll learn about what some of the more kind of important imports were, what goods were, the top goods at what time, bringing in the most amount of money. You'll also learn some military history. One of the things that I found interesting is as you get into modern history and you're talking about 20th century, the role that the Docklands played during World War II, including a top secret mission to build an underwater pipeline that would send fuel to the Allies on the continent. So, like the National Maritime Museum, it's not as big as the National Maritime Museum and it's not as comprehensive. It doesn't cover all of the things that the National Maritime Museum covers. But in the context of the Docklands, I still think it covers a broad enough range of territory that I think anybody can go and find something interesting. It does have a small gift shop, it does have a cafe. Um, National Maritime Museum has a cafe as well. Smaller, obviously, than the National Maritime, but decent. And I would say that the gift shop tends to be less Docklands specific and more, you'll find a lot more things that are just sort of like London things. Um, and then the last thing that I'm going to tell you about is technically not free most of the year, but there is a way to get in for free, and that is the Golden Hind. So the Golden Hind is a replica of the Golden Hind ship that Francis Drake captured, and it sits on the south side of the Thames, kind of over by Borough Market. Now, most of the year, I think it's maybe £10 admission fee to go in. But once a year, London has something that is, I think it's called like open days or something like that, where there are a lot of places that are normally closed to the public that will open for that weekend. Or some places like the Golden Hind that normally charge an admission fee are open for free. Now, you have to be on top of it and go online and book a ticket because spaces are limited, obviously. But I saw it for free. There is a way to see it for free, so I'm including it on this video. Now, what's great about the Golden Hind is you'll get some specific history about the Golden Hind and Francis Drake and Queen Elizabeth and letters of marque and all of that. So someone on the ship, one of your guides, will tell you kind of all about the history of the ship and that its specific story. But you'll also get just like a general idea of what life was like on a ship in those days. You'll get to go explore parts of the ship, and different guides at different places will give you information. So, for example, someone went through and told us how did they go to war on this ship? How did they load cannons? And do it safely to make sure they didn't accidentally blow up a part of their own ship or make sure that they didn't lose their hearing, right? And then another person told us about doctors on board and what were the tools that a surgeon would use back in the day and what would that kind of look like. So yeah, you kind of get an idea of just daily life as well. This is, I think, of all of them, maybe of particular interest to kids. I think they do a really good job of trying to get kids involved and making it an experience that kids can enjoy. And I think kids especially like the sort of hands-on, I'm actually going to go onto the ship and see what it was like experience. There are other nautical things to see and do in London. They charge a fee. And there may be one or two other things that are free that I haven't explored yet, but these are the main ones. And I think especially if you had to pick between the three, I would recommend National Maritime Museum in Greenwich. But they're all worth a view if you have the time and you are particularly interested in nautical things. Like, subscribe, tell your friends how gnarly this channel is, and I'll see you next time.